the Sugar Research Association, now called the Sugar Research Foundation, now called the Sugar Association. They actually they paid off people like Ansel Keys and professors from Harvard and elsewhere to falsify data and publish fraudulent studies to make it appear as if cholesterol caused heart disease when it's much more likely to be sugar, because there were a lot of independent researchers that came to the conclusion that sugar was the likely cause of heart disease. And we got to cover that up. And so it was just like the tobacco companies that, just put out a whole bunch of propaganda and fake studies that they paid people off to falsify in order to pay them, say that cigarettes don't cause cancer and aren't addictive and don't cause emphysema and all that sort of stuff. And so the sugar companies did the exact same thing, and that's not like an accusation. That's the fact. That's a part of the historical record now, because the Journal of the American Medical Association published in 2016 actual internal memos from the Sugar Research Foundation detailing how they paid off these people and what they paid them. We had their contracts. We know what they got paid. They got paid $6,500 in their currency. That's the equivalent of $55,000 now, right? So they drove off in a sweet mid-sized sedan, and they sold out the fate of the world, right? I mean, literally, that's what 55 grand. What does that buy you? Really? I mean, that's what you sold your soul for, and the billions of people around the world. There are 400 million people in India right now eating a plant-based diet and running away scared from meat, who have diabetes because of these assholes who said that, right? and that's what it's for. I mean, they got $6,500, and that's it. So Ansel Keys was one of the original researchers on that. It's called the Minnesota coronary heart study, and Ansel Keys was one of these guys who's a known paid shill for the sugar companies. And so they saw this and they went, oh, that's bad. And they just buried it. And it got uncovered, 40 years later. So if these came out in the 70s and been like, this is bullshit. And that was, people were, Dr. Yudkin from the UK. I mean, he was all over this, back then. He was saying, no, this is sugar. He wrote a book called Sweet, White, Deadly, and how sugar is causing all these problems and diseases. And and as soon as the USDA, because that was the thing, one of those professors from Harvard who was paid off in those memos published from the sugar companies, one of those professors was named head of the USDA, and he was the one who authored and published the USDA declaration saying that cholesterol caused heart disease. And as soon as the teacher says so, it's like, oh, well, that was it. The government says so. I mean, how many times has that gone wrong? I mean, why are we listening to but the government said, oh, it must be true. I mean, they wouldn't say that if it wasn't. Like, have you met the government? It's like, that's exactly what they do. That's all they do, And so, obviously people, it's not that necessarily the institution has malice, but there are people within the institution who may have malice or may not have malice, but may have ties, financial ties that you don't know about, or ideological ties. No one even knew about this. They say that, well, meat causes cancer. It's a processed meat is a class 1 carcinogen, according to the WHO. Okay, well, how did they come to that conclusion? They had a tribunal that sort of met and said, hey, let's look at the evidence and see. And first of all, you're asking loaded questions. You're saying, hey, is meat harmful? Does meat cause cancer? Let's look at what about, is meat good for you? Does meat cause good health? Why don't you look at that? Why don't you ask that question? Or what happens when you eat meat? That's an even better question. Is it good or bad? I don't know. Let's just see, right? They're asking the negative. They're saying, how bad is meat? Let's find out, And so you're only going to look at things on that lower half, right? You're not going to look at things on the upper half. And so the WHO came to this conclusion in 2015, but did they? They had certain people on that group who completely disagreed with the conclusion that tribunal came to, but they were outvoted. And there was one guy, I can't recall his name at the moment, but people can look him up. He came out publicly and said that was the most difficult thing he's ever had to go through in his professional career, because he saw them throw out hundreds of high quality studies that showed absolutely no connection or even correlation between the consumption of meat, even processed meat, and certainly, unprocessed meat, and cancer, in favor of about 30 studies out of over 800 that had very weak associations, had a lot of confounding factors, meaning that they didn't control for variables like they were more likely to smoke, they were more likely to drink, they were more likely to do all sorts of other things that could increase their risk of cancer. They also, some of these studies, they said meat, but what did they consider meat? Well, they said anything that could have an ingredient that was meat, that was meat. So pizza
Big
was
Mac.
meat. Yeah. Fast food in general,
Yeah.
including the fries and the drink.
I've heard that
and
before.
The bun.
They lump into one, don't they?
That's it. And so if it has meat, well, if you just get rid of all the meat, well, what are you getting rid of the meat? What are you getting rid of with the meat? Right? That's the question to ask. So don't eat pizza, don't eat fast food, don't eat lasagna, don't have sandwiches. Well, that's all meat. And so obviously all the benefits come from not eating meat. No, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Right? This is the only good thing in there. You have, 50 gram, meat patty in there, and just looks like, and the rest of it just all plants and sugar and crap. And it's just like, obviously it's that 50 grams of meat that was doing it. And like, you have to be a special kind of stupid to think that or try to pass that off. So that's the thing. A lot of these studies that found a very weak at best association, and association is not causation.
Do you ever get like a sinister view where they're trying to make everyone sick so that they can make money from making people healthy again? Do you think it goes that far, or do you just think it's people looking after their own interests that say own a sugar, like you own Coca-Cola, you want everything to make Coke look good? Yeah, well, I think that's enough. I don't think you need to go further than that. I think there probably are people that don't care that this is hurting people. I don't know if they're necessarily intending to hurt people, but I think there are people that understand what's going on and that this is hurting people and that they're profiting off of that harm and they don't give a shit. The reason I say that is because I'm not stupid, but also because there's a guy named Callie Means who is a whistleblower from the big food and big pharmacy groups. Right. So he's consulted with them for years, and, bright guy, went to, Stanford and I think Harvard Business School, something like that. Anyway, very, very, elite sort of education, was in these sort of elite, circles in America in business. And he has come out saying that these people know that the processed food is making us sick. They're giving us metabolic disease, metabolic dysfunction, and causing a lot of harm. And that they're fine with that because they then sell us on the back end all these medications that don't cure these diseases. They just perpetuate them, and they just allow us to deal with them and live with them and handle them. And he said, I know that they know this because I've been in the board meetings with them when they said it. And I believe it was him, if not another whistleblower, who said that one of these pharmaceutical executives said, just in a sort of passing remark, said, "Oh, you know what my favorite drug is that our company makes?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know, something that saves kids from leukemia, something, noble like that." No, he said that his favorite medication that his company made were any medication that caused side effects that they had drugs that treated. And it's like, you're a piece of shit. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. Double down.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. He wants harm to happen to people. So like you're saying, like, is there a sinister thing? Well, certainly in some people, yeah. Or maybe they're just too blinded by their greed to understand how sinister they are being. But they're saying that they want, it's not that big a deal. It just makes their stomach upset and you just give them this and that takes care of it. Well, no, actually, because it's causing stomach upset for a reason. What's going on there? What's happening 10 years, 20 years down the line? What happens 10 years, 20 years down the line with the subsequent medication that you've put them on? And then you have them on another medication to treat the side effects of that one. And then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. And you have people, and this is something that is taught in medical schools all the time. You have something called a prescription cascade, where you start with one medication for blood pressure or for cholesterol, and that gives symptoms, and you put them on another medication that deal with that symptoms, and you get something else and something else and something else and something else, and all of a sudden you have this old man who's on 17 freaking medications a day.
What's it called?
The prescription cascade.
The cascade. It's fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Going back to whistleblowers, the second Boeing whistleblower
died.
Yeah.
Suicided with two holes in the back of his head.
No, wasn't it some bacterial eating?
Sure. Whatever. I mean, yeah, like whatever they got to him. You know? I mean, that's just like, like old monarchs and things like that. It's like, oh, he died. It was bad food. Yeah, it wasn't the cyanide you poured in it. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Well, if you could do sort of any study, and you could get your hands on numerous volunteers, what would be like your dream study that you would sort of undertake with people?
Well, I mean, I'd certainly like to see, some sort of like randomized control trial looking at the different various diets with like a high fat, meat based ketogenic carnivore diet, maybe even a ketogenic diet using plants and all that sort of nasty, disgusting, horrible things as well. And Mediterranean diet, the so-called Mediterranean diet. But what the hell is a Mediterranean diet? I mean, Egypt's on the Mediterranean, so is Tunisia, and then Spain and France and Italy. What the hell is a Mediterranean diet? It's a big ass place, right? Yeah. And so, it's but whatever you consider the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet and the vegetarian diet and the vegan diet and an omnivorous diet or whatever, you could do that. I mean, that'd be amazing. And just say, okay, well, let's just look at this and look at it from all these different sorts of endpoints. That would be great. That's a big study. But one that I really would like to get started that's probably more realistic is on cancer. And because the ketogenic metabolic therapy used for cancer is something that we have well over 100 studies on easily with all the different kinds of cancers. Just in GBM, glioblastoma, that I treat in neurosurgery, is a very aggressive cancer. Without treatment, your life expectancy from diagnosis is 3 months. And with full treatment, chemoradiation, and full resection, it's like 15 to 18 months. And so that's a really, really grim outlook. And yet we have smaller studies, even smaller randomized controlled studies, putting people on a high-fat, meat-based ketogenic diet, that this actually significantly prolongs life. And we've actually seen it reverse and reduce burden of disease and actually shrink down tumors in people. And there's case series, like 14, 15 cases published that say, hey, we tried this and these were the results. And that was from Cedars-Sinai Medical Centers, one of the top hospitals in America. They've published that, and now they're doing a phase 2 trial, trying to get 100, 200 people, multi-center sort of approach with these sort of dietary changes. And then there's other places like in Phoenix, there was a neurosurgical group that published their case series on this as well, seeing massive improvements. And so, that's something that I want to get tried. I actually lecture on this. I gave a lecture at a medical conference on ketogenic metabolic therapy as an adjunct to the standard of care in cancer treatment. And it's a mouthful, but that's the actual name of the talk. And that's on the internet. That's on YouTube now. And you just go through the data. And I'm just focusing mainly on GBM and neurological cancers, but it's applicable to all different kinds of cancers. And you think about it this way: like, animals in the wild don't get cancer. Animals in captivity don't get cancer unless they're being fed kibble. If they're eating their natural diet, they don't get it. If they're being fed an unnatural diet, that's when they get it. And so, dogs and cats get cancer, but not when they're fed meat exclusively. And I've spoken to vets about that specifically. And there's some vets who get it and some vets who don't. But they're they've had an invasion from the industries as well, that the pet food manufacturers, they're all the same people, like Mars bars and things like that. They're one of the major pet food manufacturers. And it's like science diet. And it has these marketing terms. Oh, it's science. It's the diet made by science. No, like nature made the science diet. They should just eat what the hell they eat. I mean, no zookeeper goes around going, "Oh, where's my what food manufacturer for tiger food? I need to listen to them. What goes on?" You just look at what frickin' tigers eat. That's what you should eat. That's what they should eat, right? Or a polar bear or a panda or something like that. You don't need a study to figure out what a fucking koala eats.
Yeah, you don't really see lions eating chum and stuff.
I've got a good study. The Wongi study would be, we get identical twins and they're on a normal diet, but then we put one on an exclusive carnivore diet, one on a vegan diet, and then we test their running, their VO2, everything, track it over months and see what happens.
Yeah, that'd be good.
You should do it. Have you ever looked into getting a show and doing like, what was that one on Netflix a few months ago people were watching?
Oh, that was like the twin things. It was that was just complete and utter crap.
I'm trying to
find the Wongi trial. I reckon the one guy might end up gay, and the other one might end up
plums in the mouth.
So that kind of plums you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's a couple plums a week,
2 plums.
I just can't seem to stop.
That would be fascinating. And the funniest thing would be,
so what would you do?
One Twins. Identical twin goes fully vegan.
Yeah.
But healthy vegan, like we're trying to get the best result for him on an optimal vegan diet. And then the other goes on a full carnivore diet, and we test their VO2, we test their running, have other strength tests, and then at the end compare the data.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool. Imagine though it got to the end and they're exactly the same still.
Yeah,
that would be kind of fascinating though.
They wouldn't be. If you did it long enough, they wouldn't be.
Well, I was thinking about your one. Would you come in with your cattle of guys and girls, and they'd stick to their lane and you'd put them up in markers, or would you make them swap diets?
You could do crossover.
To see if there's any elevation or decrease in there.
You could. Yeah. I mean, you definitely could. I mean, that would make it longer, but
would that be fascinating to see though, if you saw a decline in someone's good health, if they went on?
Yeah. I mean, and you have to do those things carefully, because there's, you have to have a washout period because, depending on the order that you do that. I mean, there was actually a study recently that came out doing that while looking at ketogenic diets, or a high fat ketogenic diet, high fat, low carb, and low fat, high carb. But because it was a crossover, they looked at different sorts of markers, but then they crossed over immediately. They didn't have any washout period. And then, so it actually affected that. So what they had been doing before, depending on what diet they did before, it actually affected what happened after when they switched. And so you have to do that carefully and you have to design that well. But you could do that. I mean, if you just had enough people doing one diet or the other, you could get a lot of really good information from that. If you then did a crossover, yes, that would be much, much more powerful. You had a washout period, and then you say, okay, now everyone switch tables and go again. Professor Noakes does that with athletics, for ketogenic athletics, carb fueled athletics, and he gets these people working out, doing those sorts of things, carb fueled, keto fueled, and gives them they gave them 42 days. They said they didn't really take any longer than 3 weeks, but they gave them 42 days just to be safe,
to get into ketosis.
Yeah, well, into full fat adaptation, because you'll be in ketosis within a couple of days, but there are a lot of sort of other knock-on effects that you have. You'd be better able to metabolize fat and ketones and all these sorts of things better, and then utilize them better as you go, and you get different genetic changes, and you turn on and off different genes and things like that. So that's all fat adaptation. Realistically, it's going to take years, because eventually you're going to be turning on more genes and getting more mitochondria, and you just keep getting benefits from this. But either way, from an athletic point of view, typically people start feeling that they're performing as good or better within a certain period of time. So that's what you're looking for. Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show, and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. And so they gave him 42 weeks long ass time. Is that 42 weeks? 42 days. And, but pretty much after 3 weeks, they were pretty much fat adapted. And then they put them through trials, high intensity, endurance, all these other sorts of things, and saw what they could do. And everyone had the same output, the same, maximum that they could put out. But the people that were keto fueled, fat fueled, could just keep going. They just tapped into their
endurance
their fat.
increase.
Yeah, so you could just keep going and keep going, keep going, keep going. But the initial bang was the same for both.
Okay.
And then they did a washout period where everyone sort of made whatever, and then they switched it and gave it 42 days again to then get people keto adapted. And so they did that crossover. So the people that were carb fueled are now keto fueled and vice versa. And they found the same thing. Output was exactly the same, but now these guys could just keep going, and these guys couldn't.
So the keto fueled won every time.
In the sense that they didn't gas out.
Yeah.
But the maximal output was the same for both initially. Yeah. But you can keep going at a maximal output as a ketogenic athlete just forever.
Fascinating how it's so divisive, right?
That's what I was going to ask before. Your channel obviously has grown. The amount I think we did one Instagram reel, and the comments, people just going at each other. It's crazy. Hey. Yeah. Religious almost.
It is, it's to your point before. I mean, it actually is getting more traction. And you say, well, why aren't more athletes doing this? We say they don't know about it, first of all, but it's starting to hit that threshold where people are starting to hear about it. There are more and more and more athletes going to carnivore. They're openly doing it. There are a number of All Blacks rugby players that are doing this. There are a number of Australian professional rugby players that are doing this. There's a guy, what's his name? The Fox or something like that. He's like a winger in rugby league. I can't remember his full name, but he's doing this, and he was on like a news program saying, "Yeah, just eat meat. It's carnivore, and I'm feeling great." And
your Aussie accent's amazing.
and Marty Taupau, he was sort of, he was getting to be in his 30s, and he was just sort of, wasn't having that edge that he used to have, still playing great, but, just maybe wasn't feeling his best. And he tried going carnivore, and he did have a bit of a dip, and they track everything, they have monitors on everything. And they were like, hey, you didn't have a great game. You need to get your shit together. And he said, look, give me one more week. I'm feeling really good. I think this is about to hit. His next week, he had his best performance of his career. Right. And he's just off since then, So there are actually a lot of people, and there's a lot of people that aren't talking about it because they don't want other people to know. They don't want people to have the secret sauce. This is free. This is legal steroids, right? I have patients, athletes, professional athletes who've doubled their testosterone by going on a carnivore diet. They're already high ass testosterone because they're high level athletes, right? Now they double their testosterone, and all their other hormones and everything else come up in balance. Right. So a lot of these people don't want everyone knowing about it because they don't want people to know that they're doing, because they don't want them to copy them and emulate them and then know their secret and then get their secret. Right. So there's a lot of that. And I know sports medicine doctors who actually specifically work with entire sports team here in Australia, and the entire teams are going carnivore. They're just not talking about it because they don't want other teams to know. So it is getting there. I used to drink 2 gallons of water a day in my playing days. And that's how I felt the best on carnivore. And I don't use salt, You
don't add any salt at all?
No, not anymore. I would always salt to taste. I just tell people salt to taste, let your body, do the talking, right? So if your body's saying, ooh, I want that chicken stock with water, with salt, fine.